Welcome to the Filmistines, the double featured podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. We offer tiers of the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm joined today by my gangster friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include Imaginary, which is already on video on demand. How about that?
Wow.
The Babadook, Dirty Dancing, Happy Anniversary, The Taste of Things, and The Outsiders. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas over on our Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. Come subscribe, come request a movie, come right in. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at HempvilleCBD.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we are discussing Walter Hill's 1979 joint, The Warriors, the masterpiece. I'm just kidding. After watching this movie probably for the 7th or 8th time, first time in adulthood, I'm happy to report back that this movie is for kids. Kinda. It's not very good. It's very cartoony. It's very linear. There's no characterization. It's all style and substance, similar to The Outsiders, actually. And I dare say it's this weird thing. I'm sure there are many other movies just like it, but it feels like a video game movie, video game adaptation, into a movie before the game. So, man, I think this was your first time watching it, right?
Yep.
I'm very curious how you feel about this. It's sort of famous, I think.
No, I think this movie is very famous. Even if you haven't watched it, you've at least heard of it. But I wasn't a big fan of this movie. First of all, I didn't think this was what this was. You know, I've heard of the Warriors, the quotable line, Warriors come out and play, but I had no idea what it was about. And this was the last thing I would have ever expected that this movie was about. I didn't really know what was going on. Majority of the film, besides they're trying to get home while trying not to get caught.
That's it. That really is it.
So I wanted more, obviously. I needed more.
And that's what I kind of mean, where it starts to feel like you can see like the gameplay in this and just getting from point A to point B, fighting your way down the blocks, different gangs.
Getting to the next subway.
Yeah, very linear, no characterization, one-liners between every section. Like, it just feels like a game, but it's a proper movie adapted from a book. So it is odd in that way. And so your next question might be, well, is this, say, an allegory for something? It's of course sort of inspired by Xenophon's Anabasis, which is just an old Greek story, one of the earliest epic tales we still have. But truthfully, other than a few references, it doesn't share a lot in common from what I can remember. Cyrus is killed in the beginning of that telling. But I don't think you're wrong to want more, especially with how good, I don't know, the maybe first 10 minutes of the movie are. Because I think the introduction of where all the gangs are walking through the subway and the streets and kind of headed in one direction, and they have all this kind of cartoony visuals, the mime gang, the yellow gang, the warriors, right? the sunglasses gang, the baseball guys. There's a cartooniness here that mixed with the intro song that's just sets the stage for something really fun, and then nothing happens. I guess except Cyrus dies, and then we just blame the Warriors.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the world here is pretty cool. The world they built visually looks awesome, but there was no world building here at all. I mean, are these kids? Is this post-apocalyptic? Like, what time are we in? What era are we in? What just happened? Is this a love story by the end of it? I mean, there was a lot here that could potentially be something, but nothing came out of it. And is it one of those films that it's up to your imagination? Like, is it Leave the World Behind, that Netflix movie with all the conspiracies and stuff? I don't think so, but it could be. So I'm very confused on what was supposed to be set here. Because you're right, maybe the first 20 minutes, 15 minutes of the film were pretty good. It really captivated you and you were really like, oh my god, what is about to happen? And you saw the betrayal after Cyrus gets killed. You the audience, know the Warriors didn't do it. So right there, that is already so suspenseful and something awesome that you have there to have a wild story, but just to make it, well, we gotta get home.
Literally.
Yeah.
Just, we gotta get home. And they conclude it with this random dude coming to Cyrus's posse of like, I got something to tell you. It's like, all right, who are you?
Who are you? Who are you telling this to? Why do we care?
Yeah, we don't even really know their relation. They're kind of the peacekeepers, it seems like.
How do I know you're not a bad guy? How do I know the Warriors are the good guys? Like, maybe there's no good and bad, but if you're trivializing this film to just getting home, then, as you said a little bit ago, if it's a kid film, then kids like to categorize things into good and bad and what you're supposed to be scared of and not scared of. And that's not made very clear here. And I don't like it at all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The Warriors aren't likable. They're also like the least coolest gang.
For real.
Like the Cyrus guys, the defenders, almost kind of martial arty feeling. They were much cooler. Even the leather coat gang that killed Cyrus was cooler.
Even the orphans.
The orphans, yeah, and the
cooler.
girls.
And the girls, yeah. They just had leather vests that said the Warriors and no personality whatsoever about them. They're the Warriors. They're supposed to be the cool ones. They're supposed to be, just based off the names, they're supposed to be the ones that we're cheering for and that's the gang you want to be in. That's one of the two favorite things I liked about this movie. The different gangs, the different makeups. I mean, they did a great job there for sure.
Sure, it lets your childlike imagination kind of run with the possibilities of gangs.
Yes, and they got so creative. I mean, you had a mime gang.
That's awesome.
That was awesome. Like, dudes were on rollerblades. He was fighting with rollerblades or roller skates, whatever they were. You had the baseball gangs. I mean, it was phenomenal. That was awesome. That was very visually cool. The second thing I really liked about this movie was the nighttime aesthetic that we have going on here. Most of the movie takes place at night over the course of 2 hours? I'm not really sure, but...
An hour and a half.
An hour and a half? Is that the same time of the...
I don't think so, because I think they walked 30 miles.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can do that in an hour and a half. Well, they were at a subway, so I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. But it wasn't long. And it was all at night, and I like that a lot. I like that grittiness and just the usage of lighting here in the nighttime and a city. So
yeah, it helps build this world of dystopian and what's going on. It helps build this mystery. They got the hard part done. They just need to write the movie.
It gave me a Clockwork Orange vibes.
I mean, totally.
Which is probably a very controversial movie of its time. Like this one obviously was.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to call this controversial in any way whatsoever.
Because there's nothing.
There's nothing. And I did read that it was advertised to be more violent than it obviously is. The violence is really obviously of its time, but it's really just not that brutal. Other than that bathroom scene where they're destroying the bathroom at the same time they're destroying each other. It's a pretty cool scene. And it's kind of the climax of any reason of why to watch the movie in the first place. There's no payoff. There's nothing to gain out of this movie. It's gonna just want you leaving more in the worst way.
For sure. I too was confused about the violence that supposedly this movie had. And I kind of just thought maybe I'm just desensitized to violence in movies and TV.
Maybe I would even say you're probably a little spoiled with how good violence looks today. It's like we get such excellently choreographed things that it makes old movies that have so-called violence in it look just like children playing around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because, violence to me is Charlie's head getting chopped off in Hereditary, or the horse in Sisu being blown up, and even the horses in Napoleon. That's violence to me. Not getting beat up in a bathroom, getting beat up by a baseball bat.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm there with you. The buildup and intent behind the violence and how it's caught can be everything too. And when it's literally senseless violence, which is obviously normally a way to trivialize the use of violence, is calling it senseless violence. But tons of movies earn their violence.
I do feel like A Clockwork Orange, and I'm not sure when that movie was. I want to say it was 70s, but I'm not sure. Early or late 70s. I feel like that movie earns its violence.
No, totally. A Clockwork Orange came out in 1971, and it handles violence in just one of the craziest ways.
Yeah, it's like disturbing.
It takes the idea of senseless violence and makes you afraid of the senseless violence. It doesn't senselessly use the violence.
Yeah.
You see?
Yes.
And it's beautiful. And a movie like that shouldn't be beautiful. So it's just you have this kind of complex sense of emotion with something like A Clockwork Orange. Not to mention, it ruins your view of Beethoven. And
I'm not sure what other movies came out around this time, specifically violent movies that would trigger something like this.
I can't imagine, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're so removed from those growing pains of cinema. Violence isn't treated like that at all in movies now.
So I can't imagine.
Yeah, when's the last time a movie's been controversial?
Right.
Right, the only one I can think of is 50 Shades of Grey, and for different reasons, I think. I'm not really familiar with the movie, but if anything, maybe it's just sex.
Wasn't A Sound of Freedom controversial? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure in what way, if it was just controversial in the sense that it created this movement of people to kind of force some message out of it. Because remember, people were buying tickets for other people through some online affiliation. That's bizarre and innately kind of controversial.
Yeah.
For a bad movie. Kind of a manipulative movie. If I remember correctly, it was a little obsessed with itself.
No, you're remembering very correctly. It was very full of itself. But that might be one of the last movies that would be considered controversial like that. And that's looking into it. That wasn't me feeling like that coming out of the movie theater. So a movie like this, people were upset coming out of the movie theater. I wasn't sold on the performances and the acting at all. There wasn't a character that I particularly liked or connected to or felt was in any kind of standout way, which is sad because there was a lot of potential here for having a very likable character. I mean, as quoted as this movie is, there should have been something memorable, not just that quote at the end. That's a weird quote. That's a weird pull.
No, I totally agree. The performances here are very sterile. I can't say they're too bad because I think it's mostly a direction problem, And I think the only interesting character was Cyrus. He's this president of the gangs. He's trying to bring a whole new way of life to these people. Where they're talking about overthrowing the organized cops. It's like, okay, this is, part of the great intro, really. And then he gets killed. And then the rest of this movie just handles these characters like, okay, now it's your turn to read. Okay, now it's your turn to read. Okay, it's your turn to read. The camera even does it. The camera moves on this guy, puts on this guy, moves to this guy. There's nothing organic about it. There's nothing human about it. There's nothing natural. And that's fine, but if that's going to be the case, we need, I don't know, to have a little bit more of a militant oomph of some sort.
Right, we need something to establish why these characters aren't likable or why we have no connection or empathy or whatever for them. I was reading that some of the extras here were actual gang members from New York City. Like they went out and I guess hired. I don't know how you do that. You post posters for real gang member casting calls. I mean, how does that work? But it didn't help here.
I assume that was probably in the beginning with those tons of extras.
Yeah.
Very neat, no doubt. Visually very striking. That's crazy. Hiring a bunch of gang members. I feel like that's like an automatic, like, questionable decision. What if they're at war with each other?
I also saw, which I don't know how true this one is, but that they were originally going to have a real gang member play the role of Cyrus, but that like a few days before filming started, he disappeared and no one heard from him. So then they had to find the guy who now plays Cyrus.
That's unfortunate because the guy who went missing would have undoubtedly had the first or second most famous line in the movie. He would have been forever remembered.
Yeah. He went missing though, so
hopefully he
reappeared,
didn't get shot.
Which is cool. These are cool elements to read about a movie. I also read that they had cash ready on hand to pay off other gang members while they were here in New York City streets. So these are cool things to read about in production of the film. But I just hate that it didn't translate into the movie whatsoever.
Yeah, you saying that almost justifies what we see because, they're running through the streets. It's just the warriors and, the crew, of course. But there's such little happening on screen that they're just like, all right, we're going to get through this scene really fast because we're afraid of being in this part of New York.
Yeah.
It's like, we're just going to do the bare minimum. It's like, what? You captured New York really cool, but to be honest, if you didn't say it was New York, I would have never known.
Right.
It didn't matter where it took place. As long as it was a city, as long as it had a lot of turf where different gangs could take over.
And a subway system.
Yeah, I guess the subway system's kind of essential. Do you smell that stink that comes with video game movies?
Yes and no. Because, again, like you said in the beginning, this is kind of a kid movie. Is that an association I'm supposed to make? Video game and kid movies are similar? Like, that's the last thing that runs through my mind when thinking about a movie, is viewing it like a video game. Like, I'm just getting from point A to point B with weird cutscenes in the middle. I understand what you're saying. I just don't immediately go there. Because it is just easier to classify it as a nothing film or a kid film or a bad pacing film.
Yeah, what are the 3 acts? What are any of the acts in this movie? What do our characters take away? I guess their lives get taken away.
Well, our main character gets a girl out of this.
Yeah.
So that's why at the end I was like, so is this a romance? is that the big takeaway? I don't really know here.
And who is she? She just shows up with the orphans? It's like,
she's not an orphan. She don't have a shirt that says orphan. So who is she? I was reading the film had a lot to say about individuality and brotherhood. And that's interesting, but again, not captured on screen whatsoever. No two characters have this brotherly moment, this family for life moment that a lot of gang movies tend to have. Maybe not violence kind of gangs, but I'm thinking like the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah.
Are they in gangs? I don't know, actually.
Sort of. They're a gang against the law. Like, they're organized crime, kind of like the mafia.
That's a gang.
Yeah, sort of. It's just a really big gang that does big heists and stuff. Sort of, yeah. And they're all about family.
Right. They shove it down your throat, really. So just because you're having a movie about a gang doesn't instantly mean it's about brotherhood and family and love, which I was reading a review trying to say something about that.
No, totally. And that reminds me a lot of The Outsiders, where we're just handed these pieces of a coming of age story, in quotes, and we're just supposed to assume there's a message here. Like, I get the letting the audience do some of the work, but you really need to meet us halfway in some regard. You could also maybe read into this movie a little bit, saying that, you have your tribe, you have your gang, and then when you wander in other territories, you get, shat on about your ideologies and shit, kind of like the internet and Reddit and Twitter and everything.
That's funny.
You have your posse, and you represent whatever you got, but you're everyone else's enemy, So it's a little something. There's nothing to unfold out of that message, though. That's just, maybe that's the message, is how shallow our tribal nature is. I don't know.
If nothing else, watch this movie for the different gangs and what they represent. Well, I guess, I don't know. What, do they even represent anything?
They represent the idea of representing something.
They represent the idea of representing something. Yes. But also for the dialogue. Some of the dialogue is pretty funny. You have your famous warriors come out and play, which he repeats that as he's like clanking 3 bottles in his hand, and it's weird. It's a weird scene. That's worth the watch.
And it goes on kind of long. It makes it
eerie.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. And even Cyrus's speech, pretty good. And he ends it with, "Can you dig it?" or whatever he says. That's good. That's a good piece of dialogue to watch it for. And everything in between with what some of these characters say that you can get away with saying in the late 70s, you can't get away with saying it now in movies. There's a lot of references to like gay and just like attacking each other in that nature. And I think at one point someone said like, "I'm going to stick that baseball bat up your ass so you can look like a popsicle," like something like that. Like, it was hilarious. So if nothing else, watch it for that.
Yeah, I suppose I would just recommend watching the first 15 minutes, then the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
And just understand that they're going from wherever the meeting was at to Coney Island straight. Like, just, they're going there. Nothing happens in between.
I guess they lose 2-3 gang members.
Yeah, they lose a few guys, yeah. And that stupid ass scene where they're running away from these guys on the bus, and they're just running down the road, and the bus is right behind them. It's like, what the fuck is that? Why? First of all, why are they not closer to the subway entrance or the metro entrance, and just run them over? Dumb.
That was dumb. I was very confused on that scene. I thought it was supposed to be almost comedic, like you said, a caricature of.
It felt like something out of a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like some 70s, 80s cartoon. You can just imagine like that G.I. Joe, Transformers kind of animation. I can just see these characters like that. It'd be perfect, and there were 50 seasons and they were all the same every episode.
Running away from the bus.
Mm-hmm. It's not a good movie. And it ages even worse than what it offers. I don't know how it got a game, 25 years later. That's so bizarre.
All it takes is for one person to be inspired.
It's true. It is true.
They get enough money. That's it. That's all you need. Inspiration and money.
All right, man. Thank you for watching this strange film with me and talking about it here today.
You're very welcome.
Do you have a budget guess for me?
I'm going to guess 10 million and 79.
If anything else was happening in 90% of the shots, in this movie. I would put it on the higher end of that too.
There were just a lot of people.
There were a lot of people.
But I bet that subway scene was reused over and over and over. I don't know.
They just went back and forth in that
Yeah.
one subway. Yeah, maybe. But it cost $4 million.
Oh, okay. Wow, less than half. Okay.
And it went on to make $22.5 million.
Okay.
And with 174,000 people over on Letterboxd, they weighed in at a 3.8.
No way. No.
I can't believe it. I know it wasn't loved at the time, controversial for X, Y, and Z. People thought it was a shallow film. Some of the adults out there that I talked to about this film said it didn't make a mark at the time. It kind of just picked up that momentum after the fact. But yeah, some revisionist history out there maybe. I'm not sure. But this movie's not a 3.8.
No. And I could see that. This is a movie about gangs in the 70s in New York and people just learning about that and really latching onto that and getting inspired by it, years later. But that's pretty much all I can see happening. It is not a 3.8. I'm giving it a 1.5, and that's me probably being a little generous.
I completely agree. And I've landed on a 1.5 too, simply because of that mystery and just underlying fun this film wants to be. And Cyrus very good. The end's kind of fun.
Yeah, some of the fighting, although not great, was fun at the moment, especially the Warriors fighting the baseball gang.
Yeah.
That was a good bit.
And I like that scene where I think it's Ajax where he gets narked on by a woman cop and he's gonna rape her or whatever. It's just,
that was good. That was good. So
that's fun.
There's a little something here, but not enough.
Well, man, thank you again, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on patreon.com/Filmistines, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube. We appreciate all the support. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. Come write in. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, if you like this movie, let me know why. I'm very curious who actually likes this movie for research.
But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives in the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching, keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines, signing off.